I need to be vulnerable here for a second. I think software development actually sucks. And in the last 23 years, I've been an engineer for 15 of that or more. I've been an IT manager. I've been an agile coach. I've been a licensed Scrum trainer, Scrum master, a project manager, delivery lead, engineering manager, VP. In all that time, I keep seeing these same recurring dysfunctions over and over again. And just to be brutally honest, it's discouraging. If I look tired, it's because I am. I'm tired of seeing the same issues over and over again and kind of feeling like no matter what I do, it's not actually kind of making an impact. And maybe you can relate. So this video really is going to be part rant, part just creating a space here where we can, where I can share some dysfunctions. Hopefully you feel comfortable leaving some of the dysfunctions you're experiencing in the comments. By the end though, I want to get to what I think actually could be done to fix the industry and what my plans are for that. So what do I mean when I say the software industry is broken? What does broken mean? When I was early in my career, it was my first job out of college, the system that I was responsible for writing was indirectly responsible for our product catching on fire on a helicopter. So this was a huge deal. It could have been a catastrophe if the helicopter was in flight, but luckily nobody was hurt. It could have been one of those company killer type of situations. Root cause analysis, we found the bug. It was multiple bugs. We found the process issues that we had to plug those gaps. I'll do a whole nother video on this whole story because it was absolutely crazy what happened. But when I was able to look back on this with some more experience, I saw the same types of root causes. If you're familiar with the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster, and you watch the documentary, you see kind of similar things like how the profit motive of companies drives engineers to cut corners, to rush. The same exact thing happened in this helicopter fire incident. And I'm going to look at my notes. I'm not really going to script this video. I'm just going to kind of go off the cuff. But we basically rushed. It was constant rush. There was an immovable deadline we had to meet. Does this sound familiar? It was essentially a death march. We were cutting corners. We were copy pasting from previous other software packages without even looking at the code or testing it, literally copy pasting it and shipping it out to the plant floor. Two of the senior managers were bragging to each other about how many hours their people were working, and they were in this little competition about whose people could work the most hours. So there wasn't a focus on quality. We being the engineers raised our hands multiple times, said we were concerned. We were moving things through the production process too quickly. We were ignoring issues in the hardware itself. We weren't confident in the software, and those concerns just got swept under the rug and ended up resulting in this issue. I bring this up because it's made kind of a profound impact on me. And early in my career, I was able to use that as a backdrop for the future roles that I had. When I see an issue like a team not delivering on time, and I go to the actual root cause, I want to see like what is systemically wrong that resulted in that, the team not delivering. Or, for example, engineers getting really frustrated and being visibly annoyed or visibly frustrated or even having a blow up or something. Unfortunately, the reaction to that I'll say have seen, I am currently employed and those employers could be watching this video. The reaction that I see is like disciplinary. It's like, how do we correct that behavior versus how do we, like, what in our system was so broken that this person that we respect had that response? Why aren't they feeling heard? What's going on? Let's dig in. So that leads me to what I think is the main brokenness of the industry. There are no like systems thinkers in leadership. They don't necessarily see, and often the leaders were never really doers on a team. They've never been immersed in that type of complexity before. When you have leaders who don't get it, essentially, they don't understand root cause analysis in complex systems. They don't have the courage to stand up to their leadership and support the team, then that's what you have. You have these situations. And you see this in what I call FDD. So it's not TDD, it's FDD. And the F it's PG, it's fear-driven development, where team members, what motivates them to be productive, to produce, is not getting the frowny face from the bosses, not being hounded and bullied by your project manager to like shrink your estimate, not being called out publicly on a sprint review or something for having carryover, being berated and threatened with firing for making a mistake, an honest mistake. I think that this comes back to the fact that we just don't have systems thinking leaders in software development. And it doesn't have to be necessarily somebody who was an engineer. I've worked with really good product managers in particular who are very good systems thinkers. But so many dysfunctions roll down. I'm sure you've heard of this idea of the feature factory where, we strip out all of the innovation, we front load all of the discovery, any of the creativity, user research, the architecture. We do all that, all the grown-ups go off and do all that work up front. And then the factory workers will get all the detailed specifications and the pixel perfect mock-ups and put hands to keyboard and actually do the construction. And then they build a feature and ship it, build a feature and ship it. And the workers never see the impact. They're not looking to the left or to the right of what they're doing. And again, this comes from the leaders of these companies not understanding the nature of this type of work and complexity and how to actually build quality. You can have both. You can have quality and you can have frequent delivery. You can have happy customers. If you look at, another, I would say an aspect of the brokenness is over the last decade, which was the low interest rate phenomenon that created this startup Silicon Valley hustle culture. Move fast and break things. It just became normalized to cut corners, to rush stuff into production and worry about fixing it later. People who actually give a shit, about the work they do, they care about the output and the quality. They take pride in what they do. And I'm talking about not just engineers here, but QA folks, like infrastructure people who are keeping the lights on, DevOps engineers, product managers, the people who take pride in their work, but who are not given the autonomy and the space to do it well and do it right. That leads to burnout. That leads to depression. That leads to all kinds of actual real life human suffering in an industry that should be incredible to work in. Building new things, like the challenge of that, the joy of creation, of co-creation with other people. It should be everybody is banging on the door to try to get into tech. And they were for a while, but really purely for the money. So like I said, leave a comment below and see what other ways that you feel like it's broken. I don't want to just turn it into a bitch session, essentially, but I do think it's important that we share the ways that we think things need to improve. And on that note, I want to say that it used to be worse in some ways when I first started doing this. I was using RUP, if you've heard of this, Rational Unified Process, where we had to do every bit of thinking and design up front, down to the actual classes and functions, all designed in a diagram. And then the idea is you could wire all that together and click a button and it would give you all of your object-oriented code. But yeah, that was horrible. It didn't work. Ultimately, deadlines got pushed and the developers and the testers usually were on the hook for the death march. That used to be kind of the norm. Big heavyweight project management processes were the norm, where it goes back to the systems thinking thing. Because leaders, and generally speaking, don't understand the complex nature of software development, they have the wrong mental model. They have this model in their heads of like it's building a house. So if you spec the whole thing up front and then you hand it off to have it built and they follow the plan precisely. And guess what? Every house, it's wood framing. It's not changing. It's the same it's been for 50 years, 100 years, who knows? You can estimate, assuming that you do a good job speccing it up front, you can get a pretty good estimate of what it's gonna cost. So still to this day, one of the reasons why I'm tired and I seem frustrated right now, we're planning efforts like this. We think we can do more upfront. The more upfront planning we can do, the smoother the project will go, and we can, meet our commitments, our deadlines. And then when the inevitable deadline is missed or problems arise with quality or whatever, the reaction usually is, well, we just didn't do a good enough job estimating. We didn't do a good enough job doing requirements. An actual example that I have, a company doing quarterly planning and a feature that was forecast, we're talking about 3 or 4 months out in advance, was late being delivered. The company's reaction to that was the developers didn't have the user interface designs in high enough fidelity to be able to break down all the user stories accurately enough. So what we're going to do in the future is we're going to move user research further out in front so that the designers have enough time to build the pixel perfect spec, so that then when the engineers get it, they have all the information they need to break down the work into user stories and accurately estimate those. And even saying this out loud, I have borderline anger. It's not anger almost, it's just like disappointment that this is the response still to this day to things not going well, is to just do more planning, to do more crystal ball gazing. It's such a widespread issue that people who become leaders of software engineering teams and organizations, for some reason, either they don't have the right mental models, they just don't have the skill set, they don't have the experience, or they do have the experience, but they're buckling under the pressure of delivery. Because they're not educated in modern ways, and there are better ways of doing this, they copy paste. They go find something that their community, you see this with PMP project managers. They're safe in their community of other people. So they don't have to take a risk. They can just take what's in the body of knowledge for project managers. They don't even have to think about it. There's no thinking required. So we fail to apply the correct processes and mental models and frameworks to the nature of our complex work. And you saw this with design thinking, because Google was doing that. So then even a huge company that I worked for, like a Fortune 5 company, they just said, oh, we're doing design thinking now. And all it was their same project management processes skinned with new words. You saw that with Scrum, unfortunately, and I'll do a whole separate video on this someday. Scrum was basically co-opted by that community of plan up front project management techniques, to where now Scrum is something like developers, even myself as an engineer, we hate working in it. We're forced to rush. We have to plan the whole sprint up front. We're measured based on how well we were able to guess how much we could complete, not how our level of quality or the scalability of the system, or were we able to meet the end user's needs. Scrum itself was turned into a project management framework. And even at my time as a VP, we went through the same thing. I tried standing up a more agile product discovery and design and development process. And I was told, well, we use OKRs here. So that means we need to define 3 months worth of features and then make a commitment to that. And like the inner face palms from that comment, all you have to do is Google OKRs and read Google's white paper about it, the ones who created the OKR framework, to know that it is not a scope delivery management framework. It's about setting stretch objectives and tracking to those objectives. How you do that, features, whatever you build to do that, is what's flexible. You let the team kind of flex their innovation, their creativity to try to meet the objective. So the whole point of it is to get away from specific factory style scope management, but companies just, they don't have to, I just take OKRs, apply it to what is familiar. Yes, it's frustrating. There's ways that we can make it better. That's what I want to talk about now. It's not that I'm claiming to be like, okay, here's how we're going to solve this. There's not a framework I'm going to talk about here. There's not a magic silver bullet for this. But I think what is missing, I mentioned it already, is experienced and educated leaders of technology. And educated, I don't mean has to be college educated, but people in leadership who are passionate about systems. Maybe you've heard of this saying, I don't know where it comes from, but work on the team, not in the team. You start with trust. You've hired people who are skilled and know their work. You let them do what they're going to do. You don't go into the team for really you don't need to. You work on the team, on the structure, on the processes, on clarity, removing ambiguity, the system itself, to support and help grow that team and help them be as productive and performant as possible. And it maybe sounds like I'm a little bit of a hippie or something there, but I have done this. I've seen it work so many times. And it's really what I've made a career out of, is going into struggling teams and transforming them into high-performing teams. Now, so I have had some success doing that. Where I hit the speed bump every time is when you go up a level. We can get a team performing well, but as soon as we hit that speed limit and we try to go into the organization and make systemic changes at that level, maybe I'm just not a good change manager. That's where I seem to have struggled. That's the first thing. I think if you're listening to this and you're an engineer or you're a product manager and you've got 5 or 8 years of experience and you're like getting fired up too when I'm talking about this stuff. You want to fix it, work yourself into a leader position, become a manager. I'm in an engineering manager position now, and I plan to stay there, even though it kind of sucks sometimes. But I am now in a position where I can enact change, where it's really hard for the individual contributors to enact change. What was the other point I wanted to make? The other missing piece, I think, is an actual holistic, active community of people like me, and like if you're still watching this video so far, like you, where we can help each other, and we can come to each other with problems that we're having with our teams, with our organization, with our boss, with relations between different roles and our communicating together, our planning structures, our centralized admin and planning is too heavyweight. We can help each other with things that we weren't trained how to do either. I was never trained as a change manager, an influencer. How do I go in and sell an idea? And if you're an engineer or a QA person, all the way up to a VP, you need those skills if you are like us and you care and you want to be in a position of influence. That kind of a community, I don't know of one that exists. So when I said that I want to talk about my plan, what I want to do with this channel, I want to build that community. If you have any comments on that, and again, any struggles that you've had, please leave in the comments, but more to come on this. That is my goal with the Fixing Software channel, is to actually do my part and our part, set up an actual community of people who want to make a difference in the industry, who don't want to just walk away from it. You're not quite ready to go into landscaping just yet. So if you do happen to be an aspiring engineer or somebody new to engineering even, or you're just kind of struggling to orient to engineering, I have another video here. It's kind of like a reality check for what it is actually like to go into engineering and what kind of traits that you would want to have a successful career in engineering. So appreciate it. See y'all.